Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be addressing what I think and realistically what the transmissions will look like in the 2020 redesign of the Subaru WRX. With the 2019 model just being released and plans of it being released and sent to consumers happening now, we're going to quickly start thinking about the 2020 model and what the new kind of redesign and the new platform is going to look like for the Subaru WRX. Likely this new redesigned platform will be coming out to users in either 2020 or 2021. Subaru's been really unclear about when it's going to be released, and Subaru has a track record of being a little bit late on their redesigns. That being said, we know it's coming. There really haven't been a lot of major changes between the 2015 and the 2019, at least with the information that's been out so far about the 2019. There aren't a whole lot of changes, and this car is definitely starving for a redesign. Definitely everybody's hoping for more power. Everybody's hoping for their own things in the redesign, but I think there's going to be a couple things that we know are going to be constant. And one of the things that I really want to address in this video is what the transmissions are going to be. A lot of this perspective is coming from myself, a mechanical engineer, somebody that's been in manufacturing, somebody that, deeply understands manufacturing processes and manufacturing affordability and pricing and cost structure, which are a lot of the things that actually affect the decision making behind transmission releases, and less thought about the users actually gone into the product. So let's get straight on into it. And actually, before that, if you're interested in seeing more Subaru Automotive WRX content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I appreciate every one of you that follows this channel. So I think a really important thing here for all of you guys that are watching this video is me establishing my credibility, because obviously we don't know for a fact what's going to happen. And a lot of people can say a lot of things, but I think that what's important here is getting information from a relatively credible source, and it's just a guesstimate. All we can ever do is guesstimate, unless we work for Subaru, which we would have some type of NDA that would, legally bind us from revealing that information. There's no real way to know, but there are some really good inclinations and really good kind of tells in the way they're designing their products. So I'm pretty sure it's pretty much set in stone that the 2020 will still have a manual option, and I say that and I mean it in the way that I said it. That is soon going to be phased out, and cue all the uproar. Soon is relative. When I say soon, I'm speaking about maybe more than a decade, but this long-living manual platform is going to be phased out eventually, as we see less and less manuals in our, in the world of driving, and the manual gearbox becomes less and less efficient relative to the automatic gearbox. We're going to see less of them come out to the market. But I want this video to be less about my feelings about the manual and where it's going. And, I'm always rooting for it to stick around, because I always want, I always like being unique. And nowadays, driving a manual is something that makes you a little bit unique. And I think that's just going to increase. And I'm definitely in support of it sticking around, especially now that we still don't have the technology for an affordable cost, at least in the WRXs, to be able to build performance on the CVT transmission. That being said, I can say with almost 100% certainty that there will be a CVT model in 2020. For many of us CVT owners and potential CVT owners, I sympathize, and I predict the first thing that comes to your head when you hear that is probably yay, but also, oh crap, I wish there was going to be a dual clutch option. Now, as much as a dual clutch or a straight automatic, you look at ZF transmissions, they're so efficient, they can take power. Dual clutches, they can take power. As much as it makes sense for this car, it may not make sense for Subaru. The WRX does account for a large portion of their sales, but not large enough relative to their other fleets of cars that also command this CVT transmission. If you look at cars like the Golf R, you can see what Volkswagen did. They invested a ton of money in developing that DSG transmission. And, it reflects in everything they do, because they have to be able to market and sell and recoup the money that they invested in the R&D phase. Now, it is a hell of a transmission, and I wish Subaru could do something to get that transmission into this car. Is that realistic? Probably not. Do I wish it was going to happen? Yes. So let me employ my expertise and kind of why you should take my guesstimate as kind of a credible estimate of what's going to happen. So if you look back at this as from an engineering standpoint and a manufacturing standpoint, it's pretty predictable about what Subaru is going to do and kind of what they have to do. If you look at Subaru's sales and why people have been buying Subarus, at least from a transmission standpoint, which doesn't often happen, their CVT transmission is like none else on the market. They not only developed probably the best CVT to ever have been invented and, you know, put out into the production line, but they built a CVT that people enjoy driving. And there's something to say about that, because a CVT is a pretty bland transmission. And that's why they do things like simulate gears and things like that. Regardless, they've been able to successfully market, sell, and produce a CVT engine that in the long run's held up and is very reliable. Relative to their manual transmissions, the CVT's cost to own and produce is actually less for Subaru. And the only reason that's true is because they've invested a great deal of money into the R&D and production of the transmission. And that brings us back to the manufacturing. I think one thing that a lot of people that don't really understand manufacturing, you know, I think one thing that kind of blocks their view and kind of doesn't let them see the real cost of a product is that, you know, building the process around a product and building all of that is generally the most expensive part. I worked for a company that made a lot of aerospace parts, right? And the most expensive part about the whole entire operation wasn't sourcing the material, wasn't sourcing the product, wasn't doing anything that. It was developing the tooling and the process itself and taking the time on the floor and paying for it, right? Owning a manufacturing plant is incredibly expensive. It's a large business. You employ a lot of people. If you don't employ people and you employ robots and stuff like that, machinery, incredibly expensive. You have to make a certain amount per hour, per minute, per second, right? So quantity is king and cost is king. If you can develop something that you're producing in higher quantities, your cost is going to go down and the amount of tooling that you have to make is going to go down. So that's exactly what Subaru did. They put their CVT engine in a lot of different platforms and a lot of different models. In fact, if you look into the future and look at how other models have been redesigned, this CVT is coming out newer and better, and Subaru is emphasizing it as a benefit of buying their cars. And just because of that, I can tell you with, you know, obviously I can't tell you with 100% certainty, but I can make a pretty good estimation that that CVT is going to be present in the new redesign of the WRX and probably present in the long-term future of the WRX. Now, there is something to consider here that eventually, because cars are just getting faster, they're going to have to develop something that can handle power, especially with modification, and especially as in the next decade or so, they're going to produce less manual cars, especially because people don't drive manuals as much anymore. And with current regulations and laws, some manual cars are not going to be able to keep up with safety regulations that are going to be implemented in the next decade. Just like the engines that couldn't support fog lights. They're not really around anymore. I couldn't cite a model on the road today that has something like that, but things like fog lights and backup cameras, like there are effective dates. Backup cameras, I'm pretty sure the effective date comes up in 2018, maybe in 2019, where every car coming off a production line has to have a backup camera. Things like that are going to regulate the industry. So, went on a side note there, kind of went on a little bit of a rant. Let's go back to the main, topic of this vlog. That is, what are the transmissions coming out of the new redesign? And I really think it's going to be the CVT. I don't think we're going to see a dual clutch or a standard automatic transmission yet. I think it's not in the works. It's not cost effective for Subaru, and that's going to reflect on what they produce. That being said, I think the volume of WRXs with CVTs with relation to the volume of manuals that they've previously produced is going to change. I think more CVTs are going to come off the line. Any of you guys that will watch this video will not agree with that, but the numbers don't lie. One of the things that is really commanding the Subaru game for at least the 2018 models are the CVTs are selling faster and more efficiently for Subaru in their perspective than the manuals. They're making more money off them and they're selling quicker. They're holding their value. Now, there are other reasons affecting that. Prominent reasons is because the CVT is only offered in the premium trim. That being said, that's definitely a consideration. With all that, I'm going to end today's video, and I think an important part of this video is getting your input on what you think is going to happen. Definitely let me know in the comments below. I'd also like to hear kind of like your reasons to why you don't want that, if that's how you feel, because I think an important thing is, like, with all the like very, very robust manual owners out there that have negative opinions of the automatic WRXs, it's not a bad thing to hear why. So, if you feel that way, comment below, tell us why. And, let's work together, because I think like there are people that feel intimidated that they drive CVT WRXs, and I think like sometimes it's not as straightforward as you think. So let's hear why you feel the way you do. Drop it in the comments below. If you think a dual clutch is coming out, or you have some insider information, I'd also love to hear that. So drop that in the comments below, and thanks for watching, guys.